If you'd told me a year ago that I'd end up at war with an army of khaki-wearing, clipboard-swinging neighbors who thought they could annex my land with a few letters and late-night threats, well, I would have laughed you right off my porch. But that's how it started. Out here, 12 miles from anybody who'd willingly borrow a cup of sugar, I figured I'd finally bought myself some peace. Quiet. Trees steel and just enough silence to let the old ghosts stretch their legs. But as it turns out, peace is a fragile thing, especially when you're up against folks who treat a master-planned community like it's some kind of holy empire. I didn't move out here for friends, didn't want company. After the dust settled from my divorce, all I wanted was insulation, something to keep the world out, not invited in. That's what the Randall place promised. Locals still called it the old Sutton farm. House was rough, I'll admit. The roof was a joke, raccoons had squatters' rights in the attic, and the pipes hadn't been right since FDR was president. But I'd seen government assets in worse shape. I rolled up my sleeves, kept the old beams where I could, wired in sensors, built up backup power, poured concrete, patched the barn, and for the first time in a decade started to breathe a little easier. The neighbors, or really the nearest cluster of humans, lived a quarter-mile away, all shiny brick and manicured fences. They called the place Stone Point Estates, had these little signs about community harmony, and every time I passed the entrance, I could swear those brick columns glared at my old Tacoma like it was trespassing. For a while, it was fine. I restored what I could, kept to myself, started a few chickens. If this sounds lonely to you, trust me, it was exactly what I wanted. Then the welcome wagon rolled up. I was outside leveling gravel sun on my neck when this white Lexus crept up my driveway like it was hunting for a foreclosure sign. Out stepped three people, a woman with sunglasses that cost more than my lawnmower, a guy with an iPad glued to his side, and another fella who looked like he'd lost a fight with a stack of liability waivers. The woman, blonde, maybe 50, gave a wave like she owned the sunrise. "Hi, you must be the new owner." She introduced herself as president of the Stone Point Estates HOA. "Just wanted to formally welcome you to the neighborhood." I just nodded. "I'm not in the neighborhood." She laughed, that stiff kind of laugh you hear at bad corporate retreats. "Well, your lot borders our expansion phase. We think of you as part of the greater Stone Point family." I just leaned on my shovel. "This land's not part of any HOA. Checked it twice before I bought." She didn't even blink. "That's a matter of perspective." She started talking about visual cohesion, community value, all the stuff that means nothing unless you're the one writing the rules. The iPad guy jumped in about voluntary participation. I wiped my brow. Not interested. My land, my rules. Appreciate the visit, but I'll be just fine without a meeting. I could see her sunglasses tip just a hair. Not the answer she wanted. "We hope you'll reconsider. For everyone's best interest." They left, but not before the iPad guy snapped a picture of my solar rack. That's when the hair on my neck started to stand up. A week later, there's a letter in my mailbox. No stamp, just typed out on HOA letterhead. Sweet as syrup, telling me to consider the voluntary landscaping guidelines, lower the fence trim, the hedges, maybe hide the solar panels a little better. I tossed it straight in the burn barrel. Then came the headlights. Out here, no one drives past unless they're lost or up to something. Black SUV, proud to be Stone Point frame on the plate, idling at my fence, then gone, then back half an hour later. I started sleeping with my security app open. The next visit, no Lexus. Just a guy in a golf cart vest labeled HOA Patrol. He stopped at my gate, pulled out a laser measure, started aiming it at my fence. I stepped out of the barn with a drill in my hand and watched him scatter like a field mouse. That's when I realized I'd crossed some invisible line. So I did what you do when people start bending rules they think don't apply to them. I started documenting everything. Uploaded the footage, filed a trespass report with the sheriff, and added more cameras, thermal motion triggered off-site backups. I figured maybe that'd scare them off. But people like Karen, they don't quit when please stops working. That's when things turned ugly. Not funny ugly, not can you believe this ugly. The real deal. I came home from town, found my mailbox hanging open, a piece of paper shoved in. No envelope, just bold black text. "You are out of alignment with the Stone Point community aesthetic." Laundry list, solar panels, fencing, utility fixtures, even the color of my barn. Compliance is not optional. You've been warned. Still, I wasn't rattled. Not until the cameras caught two figures in blue vests inside my fence measuring along my barn foundation. They moved quick left, no plates on their pickup, were in and out in under 30 minutes. That was precision, Not coincidence. They'd been watching my schedule. That night I did a full loop with a flashlight and a sidearm. I wasn't spoiling for a fight, but I wasn't about to roll over either. I filed a police report, sent letters to the sheriff and HOA laying out in clear terms that my property wasn't theirs, and next time we'd be talking to a judge. 3 days later, a reply this time from a Stone Point legal liaison, the kind who gets paid to make threats without saying the word. We reserve the right to enforce visual and functional harmony in adjacent properties. Refusal to comply may result in further action. Not a single law cited, just a lot of veiled warnings. My lawyer almost fell out of her chair laughing when I showed her, "They've got no authority here. None." But then I started seeing footprints in the woods. Not tire tracks. Actual footprints, fresh deep, right where the cameras barely caught motion. Someone was watching. I moved the sensors, installed a hidden backup recorder, streamed everything off-site. That's when I stopped sleeping easy. Then one Friday night, quiet as any other, the floodlights exploded outside my window. At first I thought raccoons. Then came the pounding on the door. 3 heavy thuds, not knocking, more like demands. Step out of the house. Hands where we can see them. Flashlights scanned my yard, red and blue lights bouncing through the trees. 2 cruisers and an unmarked SUV blocking my drive. I grabbed my wallet, turned on the camera feeds, walked out with both hands up. "I'm unarmed," I called. "Name's Tim Randall. I live here alone." The cops said they'd gotten a 911 call about a domestic disturbance and a hostage. My jaw dropped. "I've been here alone all night. Check the footage. Unless you have a warrant, you're not coming in." I handed them my ID, driver's license, and my old federal auditor badge, expired, but still a little magic left in it. The officers huddled, whispered, then finally told me they'd be filing a report about my evasive behavior. I almost laughed. Asking for a warrant is evasive now. They didn't like that. But they left one by one. Last car's high beams pointed right into my living room. I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, coffee in hand, reviewing the footage. No yelling, no hostage, just me and a pile of digital proof. That's when I found the black SUV on tape. Karen herself sitting there just 8 minutes before the cops arrived, on the phone, pacing. I filed a complaint the next morning, full timeline video, GPS, notarized affidavit. Sent it to the sheriff, the DA, and the internal review board. No answer. But the HOA posted a fresh sign in town: "Community safety is everyone's responsibility." Underneath, someone had scrawled in red, "Uncooperative neighbors are dangerous." Felt like a threat meant just for me. Thought maybe that'd be the end of it. But a week later, 2 cruisers rolled in at 2:14 a.m. No lights, no sirens, just crawling across my land like burglars. 6 officers, this time flashlights, sweeping the house and barn, one aiming a thermal monocular into my windows. I watched through the cameras, hit the voice system. "You're being recorded. Any unlawful entry will result in legal action." They never knocked, never called out, just slinked away. 17 minutes later, filed another complaint, called the sheriff. They claimed it was a routine safety sweep. At 2 in the morning, 6 officers, no log. Right. The next day I checked the cameras. Found a wildlife cam duct taped to a tree, wasn't mine. Inside, a single 5-second clip of me on my porch, arms up, floodlights burning my eyes. Someone was planting surveillance on my land. Either the HOA or someone with a badge. I called Marcus, old colleague, compliance bulldog, paranoid as a house cat at Halloween. I laid out everything: false police calls, midnight sweeps, cameras on my property. He didn't even blink. "They're testing you, trying to make you snap. Sponsored patrol contracts legal if they stay on HOA land. If they're using police on your land, that's illegal." He dug into records, found the HOA had actually submitted a falsified map to the county extending their patrol range onto my land. That's felony fraud, plain and simple. Marcus flagged the contract I made, off-site backups, sent everything to a civil rights attorney named Valerie Pitbull. In court, sweet as pie on the phone. She filed an intent to sue. The HOA doubled down, sending me doctored photos claiming I'd brandished firearms on my porch, except it was just my post-hole digger and a pair of work gloves. They'd photoshopped them to look like weapons, metadata and all. Valerie's forensic expert tore the images apart, signed an affidavit. Valerie filed for an injunction, demanded all HOA activity cease, and put the sheriff's department on notice. That's when the news broke. Media vans at the gate, questions flying. I told them the truth had video timestamps, even proof of fabricated evidence. The public lost it. Even folks inside Stone Point started to wake up to what their dues were paying for. Karen called a press conference, tried to paint me as some doomsday prepper, hoarding cameras and menacing families. But Valerie was already in court filing a motion to unseal the HOA's emails. When we got them, it was game over. Dozens of messages about pushing me harder, calling in fake welfare checks, plotting to drive me out. We compiled it all, handed it to the judge, who didn't waste time. Arrest warrants for Karen, 2 board members, and both officers involved. Karen screamed about witch hunts as the bailiff cuffed her and let her out. A week later, the court dissolved the HOA. Their assets liquidated. I got $1.1 million in damages. Valerie picked up a few new clients, and Stone Point rebuilt itself as a voluntary civic council. No more jurisdiction over my land. Me, I stayed put up a steel gate, better lights, and a new sign, private property. Not part of any HOA. All incidents recorded. Then I founded HomeSafe, a nonprofit helping others get out from under the thumb of bullying HOAs and corrupt cops. Turns out I wasn't the only one. Now every time I pass my gate, I remember how far they pushed me and how much further I pushed back. Tell me, what would you have done in my shoes? Ever had to fight for your little corner of the world against people with all the power and none of the right? Let's hear it. Your stories, your line in the sand.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.